What's up guys, War History Geek here, and welcome back to another item highlight video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Model 1924 Stielhandgranate, otherwise known as the German stick grenade. The main one we're going to be focusing on here is, as I said, the Model 1924. And just before I get into any of the information, I will inform you that we'll be going over what I have as an original one in my collection. And I will show you right now that this one is fully disarmed. So, no need to worry there. As you can see, it's completely drilled out on the inside. It is completely hollow. So, let me just screw that back on there. And we will also be taking a look at a reproduction one and comparing the two. Alright, so the story of the stick grenade takes place when Germany was entering World War I. While entering World War I, all they had at the time was a 750-gram ball-shaped grenade called the, let me look at my notes here, the Kugelhandgranate, which I'll have a picture up here, for pioneer troops attacking fortifications. Now, the downside of this is that it was relatively heavy for effective field use, and it couldn't be mass produced for its design. And because of its unfittingness, it required special training, which only allowed a certain amount of troops to be able to use it at a time. So, all in all, it was just ineffective. It wasn't going to work. So, in 1915, they introduced the Model 1915, also known as the M15, which was the first stick design of a grenade and used a friction igniter system. However, due to production delays, they weren't widely distributed until about 1916, and these were from then and all the way up through World War II with the M24 and the M43 percussion grenades, which we'll get into later. Now, the M1915 had one major issue with its design, and that was that there was a pull cord hung out of the bottom with zero protection on it so that it could get caught on debris. And it didn't happen a lot, but there were recorded cases of, as the soldier was running and it was hanging on their belt, the cord got caught on debris and pulled the cord, and it blew up on the soldier's belt. So that happened enough times that they realized that that was not a good thing to have. So that's when they introduced the M16 in the same year. Now, it was functionally identical to the M15, except a small porcelain ball was placed at the end of the pull cord. And that was, I guess you could say, it was lodged up inside the wooden handle. So it did take a little bit of force to be able to pull it out and actually ignite the fuse. So that prevented you from catching the cord on any debris. Now later, the M17, obviously in 1917, was the same. However, now there was a metal cover cap added to the base of the grenade, or the base of the handle, to cover the porcelain ball and the cord, so that the porcelain ball and cord could hang loosely so it was easy to get to, but it was still protected from any kind of debris that it might get caught on. And that was the end of the developments during World War I. And of course, in the post-war, it kind of, disappeared. They had no need nor the ability to produce grenades. However, in 1924, the Weimar Republic revived the Stielhandgranate and created the M24, which was put through a major design change from the latest model of World War I, the M17. The explosive head was shortened and the belt clip was removed. And as you've seen in the pictures so far, there was a belt clip on the explosive head so that they could clip it to their belts. And the handle was lengthened. Now, this design change just made it easier to handle overall, gave you more ability to grab the handle. It made it easier to carry in other places, like You could put them down in your boot, as they did a lot in both wars. However, it was easier now that it wouldn't slide down into the boot. And more importantly, they found that it was easier to stick the grenade under your belt, which you'll see in a lot of pictures, and I'll put a couple up here now, for example. And that was actually one of the main ways that they carried stick grenades during the war. And this overall just made the grenade easier to use. Now, the only downside of the Stielhangranate is that it is ineffective by itself at damaging or disabling enemy vehicles and fortifications. So, they decided to make several variants of the stick grenade to aid them in that sense. So they had the K variant, which was visually the same, physically the same. However, it was issued with a cold weather fuse, as the normal fuses actually were prone to failure in the cold climate. So they, like I said, they looked the same, except they had a K mark on the explosive head to show that it was a cold weather model. They also came out with the Nebelhandgranate. Nebel stands for fog, and that was essentially a smoke grenade. I'll put up a picture here. And that had a white stripe on it. And later on in the war, they actually made the wooden handles textured so that you could tell the difference by feel. And then another example is the improvised bundle charge, which, again, I'll put up a picture here. And that was quite literally just a field improvised larger charge that they could use against vehicles or larger positions, where they would take one full grenade and then attach up to 6 additional charges with, twine, chicken wire, barbed wire, whatever they could get their hands on, and make themselves a larger charge. And that was very time and cost effective for the German armed forces, rather than producing a whole different type of grenade. Now, the final variant of the stick grenade before it went out of usage was the M43, introduced in, surprise, surprise, 1943. Now, this removed or replaced any expensive parts because, as you guys know, towards the end of the war, the Germans were less concerned with safety and more concerned with conserving materials. And they used the fuse assembly of the M39 egg grenade, which was a screw-off ball and pull cord that was located right in the top of the explosive head, and the handle was just a solid piece of wood. So yeah, that was the complete evolution of the German stick grenade from its beginning to end. Post-World War II, there were a selection of countries that still had a small amount of these that they used. There was also a collection of countries that used these during World War II, along with Germany. But yeah, it's just a very interesting grenade. It was never seen anything like this anywhere else, really. So yeah, so that's the timeline there. We can take a look at this specific grenade now. So as you can see, it's a wood handle, just like as you guys should all be familiar with. Sadly, this one doesn't have the marking on it anymore, as my example was found in a swamp near Moscow, so the wood did see a little bit of wear. However, it's still here, which is excellent. As you can see, they actually glued this piece and the cap, the piece that you screw the cap onto, so it's not 100% perfect, especially you can see the holes and the missing parts in this piece here. But it still makes an excellent display piece. So as you can see here, you would screw off the cap, and some of these would have springs in them. In fact, most of them do. Mine does not, however. And you didn't even need to screw it off all the way. It would just bounce off. And then a porcelain ball would drop out here attached to a cord, which we'll see on the reproduction. You would pull that. It pulls down through the handle and ignites the fuse, which we'll see where it screws in up here. as you can see, it would screw in right here. And once it ignites that fuse, you have 4 to 5 seconds to dispose of the grenade before it goes boom. So just taking another look at the handle now, completely stripped down. Here you can see the threads for the head and the fuse going down. You see the threads for the bottom cap. Now taking a look specifically at the head, you can see here you have that ribbed bottom. Taking a look along here, you can see there are some mud stains and even some chunks of dirt still attached to it. However, I'm not too concerned by that. It's still in excellent condition. You can see the majority of the paint. And here you can see parts of the original marking, which reads Vor. Sorry, that second word is kind of marked out there. Vor Gebrauch Sprengkapsel einsetzen. And then different production marks. This one I believe reads SK630. I can't tell you for sure, but that's pretty sure that's what that says down there. Oh, 39. 639. So that's the production run there. So, very nice. And then taking a look at the top here, you can see the marking being, I believe it says RR90-1939, meaning this was produced in 1939. And yeah, just taking one more close-up look at the head here. I got an excellent deal on this. I believe I only paid $200 for this one, which, as you guys know, in America, these go for a considerable amount more. So that's why I always recommend, especially when it comes to more expensive items, to buy from independent European dealers, as they're much more likely to let them go at lower prices, considering they are much more common over there. I've had a similar experience with other items, and I haven't had any problems yet. You just need to track down the right dealers. So that's the original grenade for you. We've pretty much covered every possible component. And now I'm going to get the replica that we can compare. So let me straighten out the camera there. And here is the replica. So right off the bat, you can see the handle on the replica is most definitely lower quality. It's not as machined. It's not machined as well. Low quality mass production. As you can see, there's very sharp lines here rather than the fluid curves that you see on the original. You can also immediately see the screws holding in the threads for the explosive head are different. And that makes sense. Screws back then were always domed. There was a lot more quality to them. These are just flathead Phillips. So, interesting there. Taking a look at the base here, you'll see that on the reproduction, it's considerably smaller than the original cap. In fact, I believe it's about half the height of the original cap. Unscrewing the cap down here, you'll see the cap is extremely short. And then here's the porcelain ball. I'm not going to be able to pull it out because it's kind of stuck in there. That's the one downside of this porcelain ball. The original ones were much rounder, and I can even put a picture up here. So they would fall out much easier. However, this one is large and probably cut from like a long cylinder of porcelain. So again, just cheap mass production. Unscrewing the head here, I will say I've had several problems with the threads, where the head will always sit crooked on the reproduction. I'm not sure if it's the threads that were, you can see, welded in there crooked, or if the threading is actually crooked on the metal. But that is an issue I've had so far. So yeah, there's the threading there. and it does have the place where it shows you can thread in a fuse. There's no threads there, but it shows you where the hole is. Allow me to take the head off the original again. You can see here, very similar. And then comparing the two heads here, you can see they're very similar in height. In fact, I believe they are the exact same height. The lip down here at the bottom is slightly different, slightly smaller on the original. I will give it to them, though. They did an excellent job on the stamping here. The stamping is right on top. Great job with that, that's for sure. And the stenciling is, you know, just cheap yellow. I haven't personally seen any originals like that. I'm sure there probably is out there, and I'm just not aware of it. And then taking a look at the inside here, you can see they look almost identical as well, with the lipped bottom. So, yeah. And if I didn't mention this before, this marking is actually explaining to you, don't forget to... It's essentially saying, like, don't forget to put the fuse or prime the fuse, something along those lines. Because towards the beginning of the war, for safety reasons, the fuses were always kept separate out of the grenades. So whenever a unit would get a new shipment of grenades, they were either going to be priming them in battle or they would pre-prime them. And later on, down towards the end of the war, late war, they'll find the fighting was so fierce in the Eastern Front, they almost never had time to just sit and prime grenades. And it was also just a pain to have to try and sit and unscrew the head and screw a primer in, make sure it's all connected, and then screw the head back on in battle. You want to be able to just pick up your grenade and throw it. So what they started doing, I believe, 42, 43-ish, they were all shipped to the front lines with the primers actively in them. So they still put the stenciling on for some reason. Don't know why, but they did. So yeah, I'll put up an exact translation here. I'm pretty sure I explained it correctly, but just in case. So yeah, that's really about it for the M24 here, and just the stick grenade in general. It is definitely one of the crown jewels of my collection. I was extraordinarily lucky to be able to get my hands on this original stick grenade. Oh, yeah, one more thing. With this reproduction, I bought this several years ago at the D-Day Conneaut reenactment in Ohio from the Sarco Inc. dealer. It is just, you know, a super cheap reproduction. I believe I only paid like $20 for it. I unfortunately don't have, you know, one of the more expensive reproductions. I'm sure they are a lot more similar to the original than this one is. However, I will say this does a pretty good job for only $20 portraying what an original stick grenade looks like. There are definitely some spots where they obviously cut corners, but I think overall they did a okay job there. So that's all I have for this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, and when you're in that area, hit the subscription button and notification bell. I have plenty of other content like this coming in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.